Are we happy today?
Oh, we are, yeah. Yeah. I just reminded her, it's the sour looks on her face and oh, just remember, be happy. Gotta be happy out of the gate there.
Well, there you got me smiling right off the hop. Look at that.
Yeah, there you go. So we kind of do our shows in 3 segments. We do guest shows, we do deep dives, and then we do in case you missed it shows. And those are kind of the 3 sections that we do.
Yeah.
We want to introduce a new one called Hindsight is 2020, or just our hindsight shows, because we have archived so much crap over the years.
Oh my gosh, so much. And you know what? Some of the stuff hasn't even made it to the show, but I'm sure a lot of you will remember. But we also try and bring back everything that we said previously in the show, because now it's kind of relevant yet again.
Yeah, I mean, we try to do that in a way that doesn't seem like we're bragging, but I mean, geez, we're way ahead of the curve so much.
Is this our vanity show? Is that what we're
No,
gonna
not
call
this
it?
one. No, not this one. We'll do one of those self-indulgent crappy shows. So yeah, like we archive all sorts of stuff, and we keep clips, and we keep documents, and over the years, and then we come back to them and say, hey, remember this? And there's stuff tonight that you've never seen before.
I know, like one, I don't remember that. Or is that just my brain getting old? Or 2, I slept through that show.
Yeah. So we thought we would do a hindsight show. We want to do this for a while because we want to hear people saying things back in the day, and we want to see how well these things aged. And also we want to, like in the description, I said, we want to pepper in a little bit of never forget as well.
And we told you so way back when. And now people are finally talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, without saying we told you so, because, you know, we're not that petty.
No.
Yeah, so we've sort of like something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. That's right. Yeah. So we're gonna start with the new.
Okay.
We've got a regular segment now that we bring on our producer extraordinaire Michael Chuchong to talk to us about technical stuff. So he's got a couple wild stories. This one, okay, let him.
I brought one to your attention, and you're like, we're not doing that.
It's mind-boggling.
And then Michael brings it, and he's like,
no.
Hey, Michael, you want to do it? That's a great story.
No,
I'm like,
that is a very unfair misrepresentation. No, it's boggling my mind. But I'll tell you what, let's let Michael talk about it. Hey, Michael, you made it.
Hello.
How's it going?
Just in time.
Good. So you got a couple stories for us tonight.
Yeah. Just it's kind of scary to see the way that the technology is being weaponized around us.
I agree.
I don't want to fearmonger. I still use, these technology. Well, no, I deleted the fingerprint scan from my phone.
Yay!
Huzzah!
You know how many times people would say, "Oh, just set up your face and your phone will open up," or "Oh, just use your thumbprint and it's so safe, and then you'll have passwords." I'm like, "Are you shitting me right now? I'm not putting in my biometrics for anybody to have. No, thank you." And then I'm always worried because I'm super clumsy. What if I cut my thumb? Then my fingerprint's not my fingerprint. My phone's not going to work. So yeah,
the phones do give you the option to do all of your fingers if you want as well. So just don't lose a hand.
But then if thieves want to get into your phone, they need your finger.
I've seen way too many James Bond movies where they cut off the finger or chop out your eyeball so that the thieves can still have access. Yeah, no, thank you.
Now, fun fact, it wouldn't work, but whatever.
Well, I've also heard that everybody actually does have a doppelganger somewhere in the world.
Yeah,
that's right.
If you do the math, I don't actually know, but that's what I heard.
It's true. I have one in the same city I lived in, and we've both lived there their entire lives, and we've never met each other. My mom saw him and called out to him, and it wasn't me.
Wow.
I saw a picture of him as a kid at the racetrack, and I literally wondered if I'd been at the racetrack. Like, that's how close it is. Apparently, he's got a snarky sense of humor, which is nothing like me. So that's where it goes different.
No, and I looked identical to one of my teachers, and all through high school, I got called Little Miss Foy because that's how identical I looked for her. And one year, we actually thought it'd be funny. She brought in a set of her clothes and dressed me up and did my hair and makeup just like she does hers. And in the yearbook, there's a picture of me like that, and everybody swears it's Miss Foy. And I'm like, no, that's me. And maybe that Ellen Grace video that's floating around all social media, maybe that's her doppelganger too, and not really her. That's right. I said it.
The doppelganger.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, doppelganger is a really great word for clone. Okay, so
back to Michael.
Back to Michael. Yeah. So thrill us and fear us with technology.
All right, here we go. So this is an article from a website called ZME Science. And well, I've seen this story on many other sites as well, so this is nothing new anymore. But Wi-Fi routers can see through people's walls. With the help of AI, researchers were able to detect the movement of human bodies in a room using Wi-Fi routers, even through walls. The researchers at Carnegie Mellon University have repurposed a common piece of tech found in virtually every household into a tracking technology. They used radio signals from Wi-Fi routers to detect and track the three-dimensional shape and movements of human bodies in a room. They didn't have to use any cameras or expensive LiDAR hardware. It
Awesome.
goes on. There's the link. But
That's
yeah, so, and I believe this image we're seeing here is the actual experiment. So you can see the real image. Well, maybe not that
yeah,
well,
down in the
but
corner.
yeah. So there's a
Holy
smaller
cow.
image, and this is the photo, and then this is
Mhm.
what was picked up by their
Hmm.
AI
The
system.
data
So
that's being sent back. So does this work also from floor to floor? Like if your router is in, say, the basement, will it catch images on the main floor, or is it just all images on the floor that the router's on? Or
it's
do you,
anywhere the Wi-Fi reaches, right? If you have a signal in the far corner of your house, 3 floors up, then yeah, that's it. And everyone has mesh networks now too, right? Because they develop these
Yes.
crappy ones so that you don't have a big range, so you have to get more devices.
true.
And so yeah,
Right.
all of those expand the range because some people even want it, in their backyard, in the garage, that kind of thing. So it's everywhere.
I feel sorry for the two guys who have to watch me all day. Still on the couch, still on the couch, still eating chips, still eating chips. Should we send a note? Are we worried about him?
Oh, ice cream now.
That's right.
Well, I guess if you stay still enough, you might blend in somewhere. If you are lying on the couch, maybe that would be harder to.
It was about 8 or 9 years ago that I actually saw like prelim technology. There was a guy showing off his. It was in the form of a gun, or as a camera, and it was sending out pulses at like the speed of light, like super fast, and those pulses could, they could bounce off walls. And they could sort of bounce around everywhere, and then they would come back and report. So they could do it at the speed of light. So it was real time. And I saw that about 8 years ago, and then I never heard anything about it since. And I'll bet you it's somewhat the same technology. It wasn't LiDAR, and it wasn't sonar.
Yeah, so probably similar algorithms at least, and yeah, so with this, we know when things get to the civilian realm, it's already been through the military.
Oh yeah, they're watching us now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Scary. Well, we
This
know
has,
they're watching anyway.
Mm-hmm.
My phone tells us they're watching us all the time when it starts taking pictures all on its own.
Yeah, they've been watching you for a while because you're uppity. Okay, so
So
Well,
is there anything they suggest to like stop this from happening, or is it just turn off your Wi-Fi and that's the only way to get them to stop spying on us?
yeah, no, there is no way to turn off your Wi-Fi.
could you just not unplug your Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
turn it off. Then you don't. Yeah, you use your wired internet. Plug your laptop in. Plug your desktop in. Not many options for cell phones, but I think you can get Ethernet adapters. So you plug in the USB-C, and it's got a network port on it, and you can plug right in. Although not all phones may support that.
Yeah,
Right.
I was actually at a conference about a month ago, and there was a lady there that was her specialty was EMF and radiation and that sort of stuff. And that was what she said. Nowhere in her house does she have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or anything like that. Everything is hardwired in. And somebody asked that question about the cell phones, and she said the very same thing you did. You can hardwire, get adapters for your phone to hardwire it in so that you're not running off of Wi-Fi, but straight on your hard internet.
Oof.
Yes, but that would also only reduce the Wi-Fi part of your cell phone. Your cell phone has Bluetooth. Your cell phone has
Oh yeah, you'd have to turn all those other
all the
options
different
off.
cellular networks. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, that's okay. That's number one.
and the next one here, this one is the first time I've seen this, but new hack clones fingerprints just by listening to the fingerprints swipe screens.
Yeah, this one boggles my mind.
Yeah, we had a big discussion about this, and you're like, no way, this has got to be a joke. But I've seen it in a couple places now.
Yeah. So basically the sounds, they use the sound off your screen, off your
Yep.
phone screen. But wouldn't they, your phone makes an electrical connection with your finger, and that's how that works, right? So wouldn't they be able to read the electrical impulses too, or is it just
Well, I think it's more inductive. So it's like you're putting two magnets or two coils that next to each other to create a magnet field. So but you do stimulate a current below the screen by touching it. Yeah, that could be picked up, but that would already be converted into something probably less with less information to read your finger. I've also heard, actually, I think it's by typing. Oh no, never mind. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding was it had to do with vibrations and frequency, and that it could record
Amazing.
all of that off of your tablets, off your computer screens, off your phone screens. And I think I read something about it being 27.8% what was it? Partial imprints and 9% full imprints of your fingers that it was able to successfully map.
Wow.
It's crazy high. I'm like, that is crazy high for, just touching a screen.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the government wants us, our global predators wants us to believe that, using our biometrics keeps us totally safe from being hacked. And here we go. No, we're not.
Later in this article, I was considering putting it in, but it talks about the biometrics industry being valued at, I think it was $600 million. So I'd read the article to verify.
Wow.
But
It's
60
so
million.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Well, yeah, and just goes to show nothing's safe. So don't give up too much info, ever.
Ever.
Yeah, I said ever. So
and with the anti-hate bill that just went into, they'll have records of the things you did, and then can retroactively punish you now too.
Yeah, we will be
Exactly.
covering that bill in depth because people have only kind of looked at portions of that. So we're going to be covering that on Monday because there's a lot more to it than just that too.
Yeah, we started going into it today, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's like 100 pages long, isn't it? Or
yeah,
it was
we've already covered it, but we're going to do it again because they've changed some stuff now. So yeah, awesome. So my turn. We were figuring out just a little pondering for you. So we know which companies run the world, basically, right? BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, all those guys.
Yeah.
So BlackRock boasts the most advanced AI on the planet called Artemis. Are you aware of Artemis?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Not too much.
So it basically tells them what to invest. It does all the predictive programming. It does all the investments for them. So in a sense, is AI already running our world?
Possibly.
Because we know those who own the money run the countries, right?
Right.
And if AI is owning the money, running the money, making the stocks and dividends and purchasing, who's running the show?
They could even be using it to help make them the decisions. Like, oh, you will own nothing and be happy. I wonder if AI told them that was.
Yeah, and they just believed it.
Maybe.
So there you go. We'll let that one will keep you up at night while you're scrolling with the back of your knuckles.
Or use a stylus.
There you go.
There's
stylus.
that too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Michael. Awesome
Thank you
as
too.
usual. Frightening sometimes, but really amazing. So thank
You're
you.
welcome. See you guys later.
Okay.
Pop in when you like.
Okay, so hindsight shows. We have so many places we could go. Where do you want to go?
I guess it doesn't really matter. There's no real particular flow to everything, is there?
This is a good one. I was gonna find the Russian disinformation from CBC, so talking about how the Russians were paying for the convoy, which was
Yes.
ridiculous. But this one is equally good from Global.
False report on American news that a woman was trampled by a horse yesterday. That did not happen. That was confirmed by both police and EMS. But the police chief did.
So let's just take a moment on that one.
Sorry.
Everybody had seen the video by then.
Yes. Global was a little late to the show.
Right. And they're just saying the video was already viral, and they're saying, yeah, no, that the video you saw was not real.
Fake news.
The lady talking about her injuries was not real.
Did talk today about the problem they've had with misinformation and disinformation. This is what he had to say.
One of the tactics that the protesters and demonstrators are using is misinformation, information that is inaccurate, information that misleads the public.
Here's this misinformation.
Hey, stand down! Oh my
We did a really great job of faking that scene, didn't
Oh
we?
my goodness!
Two people.
Look what you did! Look what you did to her!
There's a man who got trampled too. But
Growing
most people don't even
outrage
know that.
over Canadian police trampling protesters from the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa.
Oh my goodness! Look what you did!
Video circulating online showing an elderly woman being run over.
It's amazing that they never mentioned the man. It was always the elderly lady,
Yeah.
but we very clearly see the man get trampled as well and on the ground beside the lady, but nobody mentions the man.
I think he faded away. I don't know if he wanted to be identified or whatnot, but she ended up making a public statement and doing a news conference from the hospital with, like, you know, she was in bed with a sling and all that stuff. So we got to find out who she was. So she made it, and the picture, but she was also on the walker. And so they trampled a lady on a walker. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Not a good look, police.
Hindsight. I wonder if that lady ever apologized, or if she lost her job, or if she got to keep her job because she read the script. And you know, actually, she read the script with a straight face.
I don't know.
That's a really great liar.
I would like to think that she didn't know and just was serious. I would like to think that's how that went down, but I don't know.
Was that a CBC clip?
That was Global.
Ah.
Now, CBC was the one who said it was Russians that were paying.
No, but
for,
my question was, CBC just let go of a lot of employees. So did Bell Media.
Yeah.
I haven't heard, though, if Global has let go of any of their employees. So
Well,
I was wondering if she was one of the ones that was struck in the massive firing termination. But I guess not.
I don't know. Sure.
Sure. No,
Yeah.
she was Global. So we've
Yeah.
only heard of CBC
Yeah, they just
and Bell Media so far.
Fired her just cause.
Just
maybe.
because.
Remember right when the beginning of the pandemic started, and we were going, what the hell's happening? And Trudeau's like, this was a good thing for us. I assume he's talking about us politicians.
He definitely wasn't talking about us, the people.
No,
He was definitely talking about us as in global predators.
not one person yelling and screaming at him during lockdown. That's probably why. But here's him and Freeland.
Canada believes that a strong, coordinated response across the world and across sectors is essential. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
Nothing screams tone deaf, and also, hey, we planned this for a while. Then that's that statement alone.
I don't understand how the lockdowns helped to correct extreme poverty, because in fact it put more people into extreme poverty.
Yeah, the part to focus on there, though, is pre-pandemic plans. So it helped us speed up our already in the works
True enough.
plans.
Hindsight.
I really believe COVID has created a window of political opportunity and maybe an epiphany.
Oh, it's creating epiphanies, I'll tell you. A lot of epiphanies.
Wow. I just can't even right now. If only people had been listening and paying attention before the pandemic actually started, maybe we could have stopped some things from happening in advance, or maybe we would have picked up sooner on the pre-pandemic plans can now accelerate forward. Maybe we would have picked up on that a little bit more quickly and looked into what those pre-pandemic plans were.
Right. Yeah, maybe we were all shell shocked and we're trying to catch up to, 3 centuries of planning. So I think we're doing a pretty good job at learning and disseminating and
now
pulling
we are.
apart. And yeah, we're getting there.
Back then I was sitting beside a pool in Florida reading my books.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah, for much longer than you were allowed to, apparently.
Yes, I was. Thanks, Kira, for making me come home.
That's right. So this one's more recent, and it's I want to talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
This one's a little more recent. This is Pierre Poilievre. Who knows why he's taken this stance? He's flip-flopped.
Conservatives who will continue to stand with the Ukrainian people now against the illegal, unjustifiable, and ego-driven bloodshed initiated by Vladimir Putin. We will stand up every day and every way in favor of the export of 83,000 CRV-7 missiles that the Ukrainian government has asked for. We also call on the government to keep its promise that thus far has been broken to deliver air defense systems, $400 million of which were announced on January 10th, 2023. Putin has said he wants our Arctic. We know that once he defeats one country that he invades, he will move on to the next. His appetite for expansionism is insatiable. We stand with you now and always. Slava Ukraini.
So that's, hindsight doesn't really fit into like legacy stuff. That was what, 2 days ago?
That was 2 days ago. But you know what I've been reading since he put out this video?
No.
Is how our military is in literally dire straits. They're saying we are behind on, or we don't have a stockpile of ammunition. If we were to go to war right now, today, we have enough ammunition, I think it said for 2 to 3 days, and then we'd be out. Our equipment, our mobility equipment and our equipment is so outdated that less than, 50, I think it was 51 or 52% of our equipment is actually suitable to even function in a war. So over 45% of our equipment is no good.
That's why
Doesn't
they're
work.
taking all our guns, because they don't have any.
That probably. And then what was the other thing? Oh, it said we are short, 15,000 troops. And of the troops that we actually have, 10,000 of them are still in training. So our country right now, defensively speaking, we don't have a defense. And yet, not only are the Liberals sending $3.6 billion or $3.2 billion over to Ukraine to help 15 million of that to go towards helping build a museum for their vets from 1923 to 1933 to celebrate those. But also the conservatives, we just saw Pierre Poilievre 2 days ago say this, want to send over more of our equipment, our working equipment, because I'm assuming they're not going to send over the stuff that doesn't work, more of our working equipment that we have very little of over to Ukraine. What the hell is going on? Why doesn't our government see that we need to be protecting those at home first before we go out and be the heroes in every other country? Even in an airplane, they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself, before you do anybody else. When the heck is our global predators that currently reside in our government in Canada going to start putting the oxygen mask on us? When? It's so frustrating. I read 3 different articles today from 3 different publications, all saying the same thing. We're in big trouble. Our military has been lobbying the government for at least a year now about the dire straits they're in. And yet our government is still sending money and missiles and equipment to Ukraine, a war that our country should not even be involved in.
Well,
Why?
I mean, they did send tampons for the men's bathrooms. So, I mean, they've got the military covered at least a little bit.
Well, that, and they're also paying up to $75,000 per military member who wants to change their gender, because that apparently is more important than actually defending our borders, than defending our sovereignty, than making sure that our military, who are putting their life on the line, actually has safe equipment to ride in to put their life on the line for Canadians.
No, when you say equipment,
I'm not talking their junk. I am talking our airplanes, our jets, our tanks.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's what I'm talking. Our Navy.
It's bad.
That's
it's
what
bad.
I'm talking.
It's decrepit. But then again, like advanced military action was never our strategy. We were always the peacekeepers. Basically, if the U.S. went to war, we'd bring the beer boats, and we would just always maintain. So that's never been high on our list of priorities. That said, here's where it gets concerning: when they want to invite the Ukraine into NATO, and Russia is alluding to nuclear war, and they're going to push through with that, and that puts us in war. That puts us directly in the war path with Russia. It's like, we are no longer sideliners. We are no longer supporters. We are no longer pushing a Cold War from the other side. We are now in the war. And if we don't have any troops and we don't have any equipment, that's kind of concerning to me.
Kinda. And on top of the fighting age male immigrants, illegal immigrants that are being brought into our country, if they decide to unite with each other and decide that they want to perhaps take over our country for whatever reason, we do not have a military to defend ourselves.
Well, if you need hostages, we have 338 we can offer you. I just pulled that number out of midair, thin air. Yeah.
What the? All right. Yeah. So it's something that we all should consider. And I think Pierre Poilievre, possibly in the near future, is going to regret saying, we support Ukraine and let's send over our CRV-7 missiles to them and send over money. I think he'll regret that in hindsight.
But here's the thing. Okay, so if we go back to the career of the Liberals since Trudeau got into power, his opposition was Andrew Scheer.
Yes.
Okay, and that man was basically Melba Toast in a suit. He didn't do anything. He did nothing while the Liberals built their power and put in those bills, and they did more and more to erode our freedoms in the first couple of years, and we didn't do anything about it. We weren't even awake then. And Scheer just let it happen. And he would sort of feign resistance, but he never really put up a fight. And then they realized that he was ineffective. And after a whole bunch of shenanigans, Aaron O'Toole gets into power. And by shenanigans, I said, oh, they're going to have a problem with the ballots. And they did have a problem with the ballots. Yeah. And I swear Les and Lewis would have gotten in. And I mean, politically, what a brilliant move that would have been.
Yeah.
So the Aaron O'Toole gets in and he's campaigning true blue, super hard conservative, true blue, I'm your man, Air Force, I'm your guy. And then election time comes around and he took like 5 steps to the left and became liberal light. Immediately did a 180 and became liberal light. And he lost the confidence of all of the conservatives.
And stepped down.
And what happens? Well,
Candace Bergen came in and she was on fire, but then they
but
had
he ensured the election for, the Liberals.
Yes, he did.
Right.
And the NDP then joining with the Liberals. Now you can't beat them in the House.
Well, they can now because the Liberals are poised to get maybe 3 seats. Right.
But no. What I mean is the bills that are coming up that every Liberal MP keeps bringing to the table. We can't defeat them because now we have that coalition government, which should never, ever, ever be allowed. What's the point of having a separate party if you're just going to join the other party?
Yeah, I mean, the NDP,
it's so dumb.
NDP supporters should have felt really...
They should have pulled all their funding from the NDP party.
Almost as ripped off as the Green Party supporters, because Elizabeth May is, on the Trudeau Foundation. So you may as well vote Liberal at that point.
Exactly.
So they ensured, as far as I'm concerned, the Liberal win.
Yeah.
And now we're getting close to election time again. Everybody can feel it in the air, right? And then Trudeau or Poilievre does this. Right. And I'm watching it. I'm watching history repeat, and you're watching him start to take steps to the left again.
It's just one giant uniparty in there. If you want real change, you got to vote for a party that currently is not have a seat in office, which would be Libertarian Party or the PPC Party, or you got to vote for an independent. And I've been saying this for a long time now. You want real change, you get rid of the party system and you vote independents in. And in fact, you don't just vote independents in to take a seat to represent a riding. What you do is you vote skilled expertise people in to handle the portfolios that actually run the country, so that we have smart people who are skilled and experts in their field, making the decision and bringing to the table bills and legislation that actually help run our country.
Yep. Yeah, ditto. Let's go back to 2020.
Okay.
Late 2020, when the shots were just coming out. Remember the vaccines? Remember those? There was a time.
September 22nd, 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those very much.
So I think this is good to show that there's some basic logic, and the basic logic is this. And the Adam Skelly case really kind of highlighted it. The basic logic is this: how can you shut down small businesses because you want to save people's lives because the pandemic is so deadly, but then you leave all the big box stores open? Right. So if it's deadly, if they really believed it was deadly, then everybody would be shut down, locked in their homes. Everyone. And so there would be no hypocrisy. There would be no double standard. If they truly, truly believed this was deadly, they wouldn't take any chances.
They would have given everybody 3 days notice, go get what you need, and then shut everything down for a month. Boom. Nobody goes to work. Everybody's at home. Everybody's on their screens for a month. Bam, would have been done.
Right. So
but they didn't.
The beginning video here is like, this was right after debates for elections. Mm-hmm. They had the debate, and then they went and filmed this afterwards to show that we are so divided on every issue except for this one. And then this is so important. If you remember this was so staged.
We're all in this together.
We've come so far in the fight against COVID, it's time to finish this pandemic for good. So get vaccinated. If you know someone who hasn't, talk to them. For our kids, for our communities, for our economy, it's how we get forward together.
Vaccines are safe and effective for use. Vaccines are the best way for you to protect yourself, your family, and your community. So get vaccinated. Let's fight COVID-19 together.
Pour vous protéger vous-même, pour protéger les plus fragiles d'entre nous, pour protéger l'ensemble de la population, le meilleur moyen connu demeure le vaccin. S'il vous plaît, soyez responsables, soyez solidaires, faites-vous vacciner. Merci.
We all agree getting vaccinated is the way forward. We're all in agreement this is not a partisan issue, so please get vaccinated.
We're united, and it's time to get the shot. Vaccines save lives. They're how we're going to beat COVID, and it's time for everyone to do it. Get the shot.
Get the shot.
So that's how important it was. You had to get the shot because it's so important, and we want to save lives. So there will be no double standard in government. We all agree, get the shot.
Our next set of questions comes from Joe at Global News. The City of Winnipeg has been operating its in-house gyms exclusively for employees during the level red. The city says it got permission to do so from the province. Can you confirm the city was given permission and why?
So we weren't given, specific permission. Our public health orders don't apply to any levels of government. So they don't apply to federal, provincial, or municipal governments. So, so I am aware of health inspectors had visited some of these gyms and found them safe. But the real issue, they weren't given an exemption outside of the order. The order itself doesn't apply to governments.
Sounds like an exemption to
Second
me.
question.
They can't be too concerned about
So why can't small apartments or condo or family gyms operate following the same guidelines used by the city?
Well, this is the same thing about how quickly we open things up, right? It always comes down to this. So we expect governments to be able to regulate, and so we're not going to tell governments how they function. And so if, they feel that they could have a limited capacity and run these gyms for their employees for certain reasons, then we're not regulating.
Wow. So, but at least Chrystia Freeland takes it seriously. Oh, camera's about to go on.
Oh, forgot my mask. I better put it on for optics. Oh, here, take my phone. Take my phone too. Rolling. Action.
All right. Welcome to today's press conference. Bienvenue à la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui.
Okay.
We'll
now
now
everybody
hear from
can
the
see
Deputy
that
Prime
she's
Minister.
wearing her mask. That is not the only video we've seen of governments doing that. Government officials putting their mask on just before camera time. I've seen several where they're just standing around talking and then they put their masks on and they do press conferences. Manitoba was particularly bad at this. If you remember, Manitoba was also, wasn't it Kieran Moore is in Manitoba, or is he Ontario?
No, he's Ontario.
Is he Ontario?
Yeah.
Who came out and declared myocarditis a year after. But do you remember it was Manitoba where she was hot on the mic?
Oh,
remember
yes.
that? And
I don't know why we bring this stuff because we never read it anyway. We just say what they want us to say.
exactly. Yeah, she said that. I just read what they want me to read.
Yeah.
And that was hot on the mic. I've got that clip as well. I couldn't find it tonight.
It's
but,
so crazy. But I love how they admit on the stand, oh, no. Rules don't apply to us. No. We're not like the peons down below, the useless eaters. We're government. So rules don't apply to us.
But he didn't even have the common sense to try and evade the question. Like he literally just didn't think it was a big deal, and he didn't realize what he was saying, which was mind-boggling.
Deadly pandemic.
Yeah.
You guys can go to the gym because you're government. Pandemics don't apply to you. Viruses don't attack you guys. You're government. Oh, gyms in condos where only the people who live there can go to them. They're not open to the public. No,
they're not smart enough.
No. They're not government.
Yeah, they're not smart enough to do that. No. There's a picture, a famous picture that I'm trying desperately to find again. I swear I had it and I can't find it in my archives now. But it was a picture of, do you remember during the pandemic, Trudeau standing at the podium and he's talking? And he takes his mask off and he's talking and he's telling everybody, you've got to stay safe. You've got to distance. We've got to get through this together. And some hero journalist walked away from the journalist tent and turned around and took a picture. And the picture was from the side and it showed Trudeau at the podium. And then there was a tent, like a canopy tent, right? With no walls.
Yeah.
Right. And it was packed with journalists.
Oh, yeah. Packed. No 6 foot distancing for
no masks,
journalists.
No masks, nothing.
But
and
they're
all these guys
journalists.
are filming Trudeau from under this tent, packed in together.
Oh, you know why? Because Trudeau is government and viruses don't attack government. So that means government is like a bug repellent and repels all viruses away. So as long as those journalists remained under the canopy with Trudeau, he was bug repellent for them.
Yeah, crap
They were
seems
safe.
to slide off him too. He's
They were
kind of
safe.
Teflon-y. Yeah. So, I mean, they did nothing but prove over and over and over again that they did not believe this was a deadly virus.
Exactly.
Pick one. You see
Pick one.
Yeah.
But you know what? These words are going to come back and haunt them all. Because every time they said, get your vaccine, it's safe and effective, you can now sue them civilly because they were wrong and they knew they were wrong. And the data's coming out showing that they knew they were wrong. The contracts are coming out showing that they knew they were wrong, and yet they still said it. Although that clip that you just showed with the 5 or 6 MPs running for election, I paid very close attention to how they said vaccines were safe and effective. At no time did they say the COVID-19 vaccine is safe and effective. They never use COVID-19 vaccine in the same sentence as get your vaccine, safe and effective.
Yeah, I've done a whole video clip on Trudeau, evading that very carefully. Health Canada says vaccines are safe and effective.
But they never say COVID-19 mRNA vaccine is safe and effective.
No, because the contract was out and it said it wasn't. Right. And so they knew, but Trudeau and Tam specifically do not get engaged with I'm telling you to go get vaccinated.
No.
Trudeau and Tam are very slick when it comes to that stuff.
Words are so important. And in a court of law, they'll just say, well, we never said the COVID-19 vaccine was safe and effective. We said vaccines are safe and effective.
Right.
We didn't tell you to get the COVID-19 vaccine. We said get your vaccine or get your shot. It's safe and effective. But at no time did we say to get this particular vaccine shot.
Well, Trudeau,
and they're right, because I just listened to all of them, and not one of them said that, except for Aaron O'Toole. He did say COVID-19 vaccine.
Well,
he's the only one that said it. So he might be the only one on the hook from that video. If you want to take civil legal action, but I'm just saying these people are really smart. How they make you the crazy one. They make you the one that assumed and insinuated that that's what they were talking about, but that's not what they said.
Right. I mean, I've done a whole video on that Trudeau Transit where all he says is Health Canada says, and there's one point we're going to play her a little bit later. There's one point where he almost says like I say, and Michelle Rempel Garner says, are you saying your doctor's saying? So she actually helps him out. He's like, oh, no, don't listen to me. I'm just a politician.
I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, well, let's play her. Michelle Rempel Garner, by the way, we have long said she was a young global leader. She wants a table at the globalist, or she wants a seat at the globalist table. I've never seen somebody who is so a plant. She is definitely not a conservative. She is really fighting to be have that globalist seat. This video we cut off early, but she goes on and on and on, and she's throwing the liberals softballs and helping them out. And she's doing scripted theater with them. Amazing. So here's a little bit of Michelle Rempel Garner, the conservative who's fighting for the people's rights.
Canada, we are still sitting in lockdown. Severe lockdown in most parts of the country, with more and more restrictions being put in place on us every day. And after a year, it's time that the discussion really starts shifting to when does this end? And the context for this video today is the fact that the federal Liberal government put in place more travel restrictions on Canadians. The thing is, now there are better ways than just lockdowns and restrictions to end the pandemic. We have vaccines, and there are rapid tests. The problem is that, as you are well aware, Justin Trudeau hasn't been able to get vaccines into Canada. We have a massive shortfall. And also, he hasn't been able to deploy rapid tests in any sort of meaningful way.
So what you notice what she's doing there, she's creating this urgency for vaccines, right? And getting mad, and people are like, I need my vaccine. So they're doing the old supply and demand, bait and switch, so she's saying Trudeau's not doing his job to give us the vaccines we need. And
so
she's creating this urgency,
out of lockdown.
right? Yeah. He'd already secured, what was it? 300 million doses or
ridiculous
some
the numbers.
stupid 10 for everybody in the country.
So instead, because they failed on those two fronts, and I could unpack why for hours, but they're telling us that we should accept more restrictions, even though there are better ways of doing things. So for example, the province of Alberta has been running a pilot at the Calgary International Airport where people come in, they get tested upon arrival. You have to stay in quarantine for a negative test. You get a second test a few days later. And if you have 2 negative tests, you can leave quarantine. This makes a lot of sense.
What she's not saying, she's downplaying what was actually happening.
Well, at that time as well, the government kept saying, oh, no, we don't have quarantine facilities. Oh, no, you're not being forced to quarantine. And here she is saying in Alberta, you got to take a test and go to quarantine for 3 days. And upon a second negative test, do they let you go home?
But what she was intentionally not saying was that quarantine that she's talking about was imprisonment.
Exactly.
It was a hotel that you never had to go to. They just came and they picked you up in a van and said, you got to come with us. And people are like, oh, I don't want to go. And you gotta. And you never did. And I know every single person who said, I don't have to go with you. You have no law. And they're like, you got us.
You got it. But I remember going to these hotels. Rebel News was going to hotels. Chris Sky was going to hotels. There was a small crew of us that were going to hotels and on our megaphone saying, come out. You do not have to stay. We've got cars here to take you home. And people were terrified. And we were doing close-up shots and video of people peeking out their window and putting signs in the window saying, I don't want to be here. Please help. And yet they wouldn't walk out because they were so afraid by all the propaganda and the police that were standing there to walk past them. But there was no legal reason for them to be held ever.
Yeah. So I actually want to do a show on Michelle Rempel Garner and show all of the examples of how she was feeding the Liberals every single time, right? And yeah, that's right. They made you pay for that. On top of that, they were making you pay for these hotels. Yeah. It was ridiculous, and you could just walk out at any given moment. Do you remember there was a scandal that they couldn't lock their doors, or they didn't even have doors, and some ladies got raped? Do you remember that?
Oh,
they covered that up super fast.
They did cover that up. They did. And actually, there was one in Trenton. Corey Sager from Quinty Rise Up. He led a slew of us down. He found out where one of the 14 hotels were, and they had several families and people in these rooms. And we went and we were knocking on the doors, and one of the ladies was brave enough to actually open the door. And she's like, no, I can't talk to you because then I'll have to stay even longer. And they've already taken my welfare or social assistance or whatever away. And they're threatening that if I talk to anybody, if I leave, they're going to add more time on. So I can't talk to you. I don't want to stay, but I've only got, I think she had 1 more day or 2 more days to stay. She's like, so you have to go. And then the hotel people came out and they saw us talking to this lady, and they were up in arms and they called the police and the whole works to get us to leave. This poor lady was so frightened that more time would be added onto her. And it was a shady motel. It wasn't even a nice motel with nice comfortable things, and they would place like food out in a bag in front of the hotel door that she could like bring in and eat. Oh, it was horrible.
It's just awful. And it was all a lie. All of it was a lie.
Hey, Senior Canuck, we're really sorry. He says, my PTSD is about to flare up watching this show tonight.
I know. I got you, buddy. Yeah, I'm the same way. This is it's just the egregiousness. So there's a lot of people who watch this show who might get upset at this next clip. But there's been a question on my mind for a very long time, and we found a couple clips to go over this, and some of you might get really upset at this, but you know, we don't favor anybody. We call both sides out.
Here we go.
Clarify your position on the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine after you retweeted a video making claims that it is effective.
I wasn't making claims. It's recommendations of many other people, including doctors. Many doctors think it is extremely successful. The hydroxychloroquine, coupled with the zinc and perhaps the zithromycin, but many doctors think it's extremely good, and some people don't. Some people, I think it's become very political. I happen to believe in it. I would take it. As you know, I took it for a 14-day period, and I'm here, right? I'm here. I happen to think it works in the early stages. I think frontline medical people believe that too, many. And based on a lot of reading and a lot of knowledge about it, I think it could have a very positive impact in the early stages. And I don't think you lose anything by doing it, other than politically, it doesn't seem to be too popular. You know why? Because I recommend it. When I recommend something, they like to say, don't use it.
So here's where it gets curious for me. So he said, I shouldn't have said hydroxychloroquine is good, because when I say it's good, then people think
Won't
it's
use
bad,
it.
right?
And
then,
I like that he says this is political.
Yes.
He said it 2 or 3 times through that speech. This is
Right.
political. Some people don't like this, and it's political. So he was already telling us, 1, it worked.
Yep.
2, many doctors say that it's working and it's fixing people in the early stages. And 3, it's political that they don't want you to have it.
Right. Now here is where it starts to get a little curious.
And it fixed him.
It did fix him.
It
And
fixed him.
he said it right out of the gate. I got better because of hydroxychloroquine.
December 21st, we took care of Joe Biden because he got his shot. He got his vaccine. He forgot. It shows you how unpainful that vaccine shot is. So everybody go get your shot.
It works incredibly well, 95%, maybe even more than that. It works incredibly well. And I would recommend it to a lot of people that don't want to get it. And a lot of those people voted for me, frankly. But, you know, again, we have our freedoms and we have to live by that. And I agree with that also. But it's a great vaccine. It's a safe vaccine, and it's something that works.
I recommend you take it, but I also believe in your freedoms 100%.
When you have the vaccine, people that do, and it's a very small number relatively, but people that do get it get better much quicker. And it's a very important thing to know. They don't get nearly as sick, and they get better. Lindsey Graham's an example. He said, if I didn't have this vaccine, I would have died.
And you know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. Bree, you got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But no, that's okay. That's all right.
I love that people.
You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine.
The vaccines do work, and they are effective. And here's my thing. I think I saved many, I don't think, I know, I saved millions and millions of lives throughout the world. We could have had another Spanish flu. We could have had, in 1917, close to 100 million people died, they say. But it was really bad. And now other countries are using our vaccines and, they're tremendously successful.
You're playing right into their hands when you sort of like, oh, the vaccine. If you don't want to take it, you shouldn't be forced to take it. No mandates, but take credit because we saved tens of millions of lives. Take credit. Don't let them take that away from you.
Okay, so the president made news.
Do you agree with that? Right?
Both the president and I are vaxxed, and did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too. Okay, so...
Don't.
So that is curious. That is curious because he knew early treatment worked.
He forgets hydroxychloroquine saved his life, and that many doctors have been treating patients and saving people's lives. All of a sudden, he forgot all that. A year later, he forgot.
So, devil's advocate, is he trying to do exactly what he said? He's trying to say the vaccines are good, so everybody says they're bad. Because it didn't seem to work that way.
I don't know, but he got booed by his own people.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, but you got your freedoms. How
Right.
many people had their freedoms?
Right now,
They didn't.
We've seen the contract from around the world. We can only assume that the U.S. had the same contract that said it wasn't a guaranteed safe. It wasn't effective. So he would have known, would he not? As president, he should have known.
Exactly.
So it's odd. It was an odd flip-flop from that guy.
And from then on, after April, April was the last tweet and last video he did about hydroxychloroquine. After April, it was all about the vaccine, warp speed, get the vaccine out. Vaccines are saving tens of millions of lives. We did so good with the vaccine. Vaccine's the only way to save people. He forgot he did a video, and not only a video, the NIH actually has an article where they talk about Trump's influence with hydroxychloroquine, zermiathrin, and I know I screwed that name up, and there was another drug, and how he was saying, don't use remdesivir.
Right.
And in that month from March, I think it was March 9th to April 21 or something like that, they actually did a breakdown of Trump's tweets, his press conferences, and any video interview that he did of how many times he said hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, zermiathrin,
Zithromycin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And how every time he said it, the sales of those proven drugs went through the roof. On Amazon, on this, on that, on all these different things. And they said, we need to shut this down. But it gave them the data they needed to say that influential people, especially celebrities and influential presidential people, the more they said stuff, the more people would go out and buy it. So they shut him down in April. And then from then on, it was all about the shots saving people, and the shots and warp speed. Oh, I got my shots and my booster. I did. Yeah, I did. It's the only way to go.
Yeah, I was doing the markets back then. Every time you mentioned a company, I bought stock, and it went up. And it peaks after about 3 days. And so after about 3 days, I'd sell it. And I made a couple $1,000s off of every time he opened his mouth. So it was good. So that's that one. Let's go way back to here. Oh no, this actually tags right into that.
Okay.
Agreements require.
Okay, so he's talking about the Pfizer contract, basically the Moderna contract, AstraZeneca contract. So here's him making a case for the fact it's been put to him that these contracts are heavily redacted. And is that ethical? Because this has a lot to do with people's lives, and we should get to see what the deals were.
Yeah.
Employees of the government of Canada that access these documents to sign confidentiality agreements. And why is that? Why is there much more redactions, as my colleague said, in these documents than in other documents? It's because these documents were signed at the beginning of a pandemic, when everybody was desperate for vaccines, when companies were being told to rush vaccine production.
Now let's just talk about that for half a second. I take umbrage. I'm umbrage taking with that one because because they're the ones who put us into that corner.
Yes.
Right? There were early treatments,
which Trump said in March 2020.
Right. And so early treatments weren't even looked at. It's not that they looked at them and rejected them. They didn't even look at early treatment. All they said for an entire year was the only way out of this pandemic is get your vaccines. Is vaccines. That's the only way to do it. As if a vaccine could be created out of the blue that quickly anyway. I mean,
well, they knew something we didn't
We're
know.
pretending that it wasn't already created, but they're the ones who told the public the only way out of this is the vaccine. They're the ones who created that problem.
Exactly.
And now they're saying that they were, these poor companies were under urgency to do it. They're the ones who did that.
They created the urgency.
Yes.
We didn't. We, the people, didn't. But
No.
the fear mongering and the propaganda.
Do testing in an unprecedented way, in a way they normally don't do it. So these companies were exposed to way higher liability, putting their products on the market than they normally would, because they didn't do the type of testing that normally takes these drugs years to come to market. They did it all in less than a year.
Right. And they came out with a product that they said, was it tested for cancer? No. Carcinogenic properties? Yeah, we don't know. What about genotoxicity? Will it hurt genes? Yeah, we don't know. But it's a gene therapy. Yeah, we don't know.
So that's why these companies said, if I'm going to deliver you this product that I haven't tested in my normal way, I want to have different conditions. And with all countries around the world competing with each other to get these, the countries had less leverage than they normally do. For example, if we were entering into flu vaccine contracts or monkeypox contracts or other things that were normally available, this would be a different issue. But these are already signed. They were signed at a time the government didn't have that leverage in negotiations. We just wanted to sign as many vaccine contracts with as many producers as possible because Canadians were desperate for vaccines. And in the end, it worked out. We got vaccines, and we were one of the countries that got to vaccinate everybody the fastest.
It worked out. Tell that to all the parents who no longer have their children sleeping in their beds at night.
Right.
Tell them how well it worked out.
Yeah, and that urgency, they say they created that urgency like we're talking about, but so it's the government that placed that demand on those, and he says it right there. They place that demand on those companies. Their companies are, if you're going to make us do this, then you're going to make us. So everybody came out of the gate saying, Pfizer is so evil because they're demanding indemnity and they hold all the power. It's the government that pushed that, and it's the government that signed the contract that said these things are. We don't know if they're safe or they're going to cause harms.
No, Pfizer was very honest, and all you had to do was go to their website, page 1 of their website. It said gene therapy. At no time did Pfizer, all through their website, at no time did they ever call it a vaccine. They called it gene therapy.
Right.
And they said it's still in investigation phases, which means experiments. So Pfizer actually told the truth right from day one.
Well, they were going to get sued, and their defense was the government knew. So you can't really get us because they knew. They already approved it and they knew ahead of time. So their defense was they were colluding with the government.
Yeah. And Pfizer's lawyers did a great job drawing up those contracts because they disclosed in the contracts. We don't know if it's safe and effective. We don't know what it's going to do. We're still investigating it. And you can help us by reporting every single adverse or benefit from it to us immediately within 30 days. Was it within 30 days or 48 hours?
No, 15 days for reporting once they got, but it's just not.
But they were honest. They were honest in the contract. They were upfront in the contract, and they were honest on their websites.
But let's not at all interpret that as Jody and I saying Pfizer's a good company.
No,
they're not.
No,
they're laden with evil. And the two people who brought those vaccines into Canada, Colsey Pinau and Fabien Paquette, the leads who brought that in are now both on cancer departments. So that tells you something right there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So Pfizer is now creating drugs to offset all of the harms that the vaccine has created. Awesome. So
in Pfizer's defense, none of their employees had to get the shots. And in fact, even the president said, you know what, I'm going to step to the back of the line.
Just for you guys.
Just for you guys.
Yeah, because I'm cool,
that
kind-hearted.
should have been the big time warning.
Right. So now this is from July of 2021. While we're all looking at vaccines and mandates and lockdowns and whatnot, this kind of slid through, and this was an early warning sign to future days, as we'll see now.
Stumbled on a section of the Bank of Canada Act, Section 18, subsection J, only hours before I was originally planning to make this point of privilege. And having read that section and looked at the numbers, I came to the conclusion that there very well might be a breach of law involved in what the bank and the government have colluded to do. Allow me to read the section in question. Section 18, the bank may, J, make loans to the government of Canada or the government of any province, but such loans outstanding of anyone at any one time shall not, in the case of the government of Canada, exceed 1/3 of the estimated revenue of the government of Canada in a fiscal year. I turn your attention, Mr. Speaker, to Table A14, Summary Statement of Transactions, Budget 2021. Projected revenues $355.1 billion. So to respect Section 18J of the Bank of Canada Act, which limits the bank's ability to lend money to the government to no more than 1/3 of projected budgetary revenues, the bank would be effectively capped in its loans to the government at $118 billion. $118 billion being 1/3 of the $355 billion of projected revenues. In fact, The Bank of Canada balance sheet shows that it now holds $415 billion, almost $300 billion more than the legal cap provided in the Act. Now, when I discovered this apparent breach, I immediately delayed my introduction of this point of privilege to spend the time to verify and re-verify my calculations. I've never seen a government body so flagrantly violate limits that the Parliament has placed upon it in statutory law, so I thought there must be some mistake. But as I crunched the numbers, I realized that no, in fact, the 1/3 limit was breached. I then reached out to the Library of Parliament to conduct a full review of all the legislation passed to approve emergency COVID spending since spring of 2020 to find out if maybe the section was temporarily suspended or a special exemption to it was created in order to allow this kind of dollar figure to be lent from the bank to the government. And sure enough, the Library of Parliament said there was no such exemption or suspension of the section. It is still in place. In other words, this research shows, and I ask that you and your trusted advisors and the officials at the Library of Parliament to verify my claim here, that the Bank of Canada has breached limits that Parliament has imposed on its ability to lend money to the government. Now, these limits do not exist without reason. There is a reason why Parliament chose deliberately to write a section into the Bank of Canada Act limiting the amount of debt the bank could buy. And it is the reason is this, because Parliament foresaw that future governments might try to use the printing presses over at the bank in order to pay for spending that it could not raise through the more normal process of taxation. With the limits Parliament placed on the Bank of Canada's purchase of government debt, Parliament effectively banned the government from raising taxes by inflationary money creation instead of by legal and legitimate taxation. That the government and the bank have circumvented that ban and broken a law of Parliament breaches the privileges of every member of this House to vote on laws that are made and repealed. In the process, the government has breached the principle of the independence of the central bank.
But that was way back in the day. They're talking like $300 billion over. Now, it's unconfirmed, but I'm hearing reports now that she's now just borrowed another $500 billion.
Well, they had to borrow money to send $3.2 billion over to Ukraine. We don't have that. And as Pierre Poilievre alluded to, even sending $3.2 billion over to Ukraine is above and beyond our spending cap when we only have, what was it, 441 million coming in.
Well, that was 4 days ago, because 3 days ago, he's all on board now.
Yeah, well, and also in that speech, if you noticed, and I don't know how many people caught it, because I didn't catch it the first and second time that you played that video earlier today, but I just caught it now. He talked about raising taxes in order for Canada to meet their cap for borrowing.
Yeah.
So he is a proponent of raising taxes.
Yeah.
You guys didn't raise taxes, and you should have. He said that. You should have raised taxes, and then you would have been fine. But you didn't raise taxes, so now you're not fine. You've actually contravened the legislation. So how do we fix this?
Right.
So is he really against the carbon tax
it's good
now?
political theater. I mean, to be honest with you, it's entertaining, and that's what the people like. They don't really want legislation. They don't really want to have a better Canada. They just really want to watch the back and forth in the political theater, right? You know, my favorite one is the casino thing. When the Liberal government invested like a bunch of $1 million into the casino, and Poilievre stands up and says, like, this was a really bad investment, and nobody would ever invest in these things. So who is this genius that thought that they should invest into this company? Will that genius please stand up? And then Trudeau has to respond, so he had to stand up. That was a brilliant move.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. So back to this is, I think 2 years ago now, he does the press the press dinner, and he makes jokes, and his joke writer is
Oh,
really
yeah.
awful.
It's so bad.
And the famous one from like 4 years ago was where he said he's paying off the media, and everybody's using that as a big gotcha. This is from 2 years ago, and this is why it's relevant.
We all know he's too busy staying up late, tweaking his YouTube algorithms.
Talking about Polly Evans.
But if you wanted him to come, you just should have told him you were occupying the museum, and he would have shown up with Timbits. But Pierre let me know he really does feel bad that he couldn't make it tonight. So as a consolation, he told me to tell you to look under your seats. Yes? You're a shadow critic, and you're a shadow critic, and you're a shadow critic, and you, and you, and you! No, sorry, not you, Michelle.
Michelle Rumpelgarner.
Michelle Rumpelgarner.
Actually, speaking of waspy things,
Is that not hate?
last
speech over
summer,
there?
It is,
Pierre told his pal Jordan Peterson that he's a, quote, believer in using simple Anglo-Saxon words. I know, I didn't get it either, but I'm told it sounds much better in the original German.
Again, hate speech.
So yeah, implying that he's a Nazi and whatnot. Under his new rules, Bill 63, which we'll be covering on Monday,
That is all stuff
would
that would
land
get him
him in jail.
arrested.
Yes.
Arrested, and what is the fine? $750,000.
$75,000.
$75,000.
Yeah, it's the most egregious free speech fines in the free world. Yeah, so we'll be covering a whole bunch of censorship stuff. So that is very relevant today. And then we've got one final one from not too long ago.
Yeah. You know, are these politicians going back and looking at these speeches and going, wow, that was really bad, I need to fire my speechwriter? Or are they going, oh my God, that's so funny, I'm going to say it? Because that, coming from a man who's all about equality and don't want to inclusiveness, right? Diversity, equality, inclusiveness. That speech was probably the furthest thing from being inclusive and equal, unless discrimination across the board in the Conservative Party is inclusive. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a paint chip profile that, you know, over here you can't make fun of it, but over here that's fine.
But calling them waspy and this, that, and the next thing, that's a derogatory
of course
term.
It is. Of course it is. And it was meant to draw laughter and humiliate her in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
of course,
it was bad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's double standards.
Hindsight. Rules for thee and rules for me.
Right.
They already admitted that under oath. We're the federal government. Those rules don't apply to us.
Yeah. Do you remember we covered that federally sponsored, federal government sponsored study on racism? And they said pretty much all forms of racism are bad, except for dressing up and blackface.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah. How convenient.
Rules for thee and rules for me.
Now, on this last one, we really wanted to cover this properly, and we haven't. And it's not that long ago. This was November of last year. But I don't think it got covered properly. And I never saw any reporting on the aspects that we want to report on. So we're going to kind of do the Memento thing, or that episode of Seinfeld. We're going to go backwards. We're going to do it from back to front and kind of reveal as we go. So we'll start here at a budget Senate hearing. And Chrystia Freeland is just watching this woman get questioned is just so frustrating.
I think it's important to have intellectual honesty in this conversation. I'm asking you about GDP per capita. Canada's population has swelled in recent years, which has masked our GDP per capita, which is per individual. Each Canadian is getting poorer. They're getting poorer, Minister. This is an issue. So I'm asking you again, just a number. What was GDP per capita in the first quarter, the second quarter, or the third quarter?
Mr. Lawrence, you and I actually have had very respectful exchanges, and I'm grateful for that. But I have to say, after your leader's performance last week, where he jumped to accusations of terrorism, alarming all Canadians, and after the vote of your party, to fail to support Ukraine,
Point of order, Chair.
it is a
Point of order, Chair.
rich to take this.
You laid
time.
out in the beginning of the meeting that, we should give time to answer the questions. That has nothing to do with the question. And I would indulge you to take a look at what kind of relevance her answer has to the question at hand.
So there you go. They're asking about the welfare of Canadians, and she is just so contemptuous.
And she decides, instead of answering Philip Lawrence's question, she's going to take the opportunity to denigrate his leader party, or
Right.
party leader.
For accusing, scaring people with
which we saw at the beginning of the show, the terrorist thing.
right, exactly. And so, yeah.
Or did we play that?
No,
out?
we haven't played it
Oh,
yet.
we didn't play it.
So
Okay,
here's
sorry.
what she's alluding to.
Oh.
Do you think it was responsible for you to call yesterday's explosion by the checkpoint at the Rainbow Bridge terrorism when no U.S. or Canadian officials said that was or authorities said that was the case, and when the New York governor also said there was no evidence to suggest terrorism activity?
Where you are wrong is that CTV reported that the government of Canada was presuming that the incident was terrorist. So, yeah, that's what I said in my remarks. You're right. It was a media report. And that media report, according to CTV, unless you're questioning their integrity now, came from security officials in the Trudeau government.
Now, I just want to pause there for half a second. So, of course, they're talking about when that car exploded at the border. We took some fire for that because we even, we don't talk about it much, but being in the position we're in, we sometimes get inside information from tipsters, and we got a tip right away.
Very valuable and trustworthy.
Yeah,
tip.
so we got a tip that this was in fact an attack, and for some reason we don't know why they covered it up. We don't belabor the point because we can't prove it, and now we just look stupid if we try and push the point. But we had heard the same thing like right off the bat. He's saying that inside sources were calling it a terrorist attack. And so if you'll remember, he went on a tirade after that saying, terrorism is running rampant in Canada. And Poilievre then went on to say, we need better security. We need to amp up safety protocols for Canadians.
We need more surveillance to keep Canadians
So he jumped
safe.
on it like crazy. Yeah, he did full-blown Nazi tactics there. But basically Chrystia Freeland was saying like it was egregious. He didn't have any proof. The reporter was saying you didn't have any proof, and you went off and made this wild accusation that wasn't any proof. But I watched something in the House, and I never heard anyone else talking about this, but if you watch really carefully, watch Trudeau here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe.
maybe I'll add it. Maybe we'll add that to the show.
Speaker,
instead.
we've just heard media reports of a terrorist attack, an explosion at the Niagara crossing of the Canada-U.S. border. At least two people are dead. One is injured. It is the principal responsibility of government to protect the people. Can the Prime Minister give us an update on what he knows and what action plan he will immediately implement to bring home security for our people?
Listen carefully here.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is obviously a very serious situation in Niagara Falls. There was a vehicle explosion at the Rainbow Bridge crossing. I've been briefed by the NSIA and the Minister of Public Safety. CBSA, RCMP, and Transport Canada are all fully engaged in providing the necessary support. There are a lot of questions, and we are following up to try and get as many answers as rapidly as possible. We are in close contact with U.S. officials, and we'll continue to work closely with them. We will continue to be engaged. We will provide updates. Updates I can give right now is there are 4 border crossings that are right now closed: Rainbow Bridge, Whirlpool Bridge, Queenston Bridge, and Peace Bridge. Additional measures are being contemplated and activated at all border crossings across the country. We are taking this extraordinarily seriously. And Mr. Speaker, I will have to excuse myself now to go get further updates and work on this very serious situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now look at that. Look at what he did there. He told everybody it's very serious. He listed off 6 intelligence agencies that he was in contact with, and as a result, they
That all
felt.
said terrorists.
Well, he didn't say that, but he was in contact and getting information from 6 intelligence agencies, and as a result, they felt it was necessary to close 4 borders in Ontario and look at taking further steps across Canada to close all the borders. And this is a very serious situation, and I have to go. It's so serious that I have to leave.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't anybody not draw the conclusion that he was talking about terrorist activity there?
100%.
There was no reason to close any other border crossings for a car accident.
And the fact that Pierre Poilievre, before putting the question to him, said there are media reports of terrorist activity.
Right.
And then this is how JT answers.
Right.
So he didn't
fueled the fire.
Exactly. So it wasn't Pierre Poilievre jumping to that conclusion. This is media reports he's receiving. Trudeau did not put out the fire. He threw, as you said, gasoline on the fire and then hightailed it out of there. But like you said, as well, 6. I saw you counting them as he's listing
it was
them
1,
off.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
6 sources, intelligence sources.
Right.
And one of those sources, by the way, was our source as well,
right,
saying all this stuff. So, and then Chrystia Freeland has the nerve to go after MP Philip Lawrence on a completely different topic, has the nerve to attack him and say, how dare you? I'm not going to answer your question because your party leader jumped to the conclusion and got all Canadians up in a tizzy.
Right. I mean,
come on.
You know, we have a lot of theories about the car that we just won't bring up because there's no way to prove anything, and we just try to keep it to what we can prove. But you know, on a very, just keeping it on the low level political spectrum, it looks a lot like he did also mock Pierre later on in the House, like a couple days later, for jumping to conclusions, and it looks a lot like Trudeau set him up and tried to make him look bad afterwards.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I just never heard anybody talking about that portion of it. It seemed to go missing. You know, just it went over everybody's heads, or they didn't miss it, or they were looking at other things that were.
They just
more
buried
important.
it as quickly as they possibly could.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So anyway, so that is our Hindsight show for a pilot show. I don't know how you feel about that show, but we're going to try and do a lot more of those because we've got so much in the way of archives that people have forgotten about. And there's just so much that proves that they were lying from the get-go and they were causing harms. And we'll do a lot more of those shows so you can see, you know, what they've been up to for ages.
And we do apologize if this brought back some PTSD moments for people.
Understood.
Even as we were watching some of the speeches, even we were going, oh,
getting so angry.
Oh, can't play that. No, this one is going to make me vomit. Can't play that either. But these were relevant at the time, and very important that we keep things relevant and that we hold our global predators accountable for the things that they say and the things that they do, and that we don't forget.
Right.
Because when we forget, we repeat. And we know, if you watch our show on a regular basis, you know there's more stuff coming down the pipe. So we cannot let these guys off the hook.
No.
And we cannot forget. And we need to always be prepared for what's coming.
Exactly. So there's our Hindsight show. We'll be back on Monday to talk about Bill 63, Bill 60. I think it's 62, the religious aspect. Basically, all the
censorship
bills. Stuff that is amping up like crazy. So we'll be hitting those, but we'll be going into Bill 63 a little more deeper than I think is getting in the news.
Deeper.
Yeah,
that bill's like 100 pages long. I know people have only barely scratched the surface in reporting and on social media. So we just decided as we were going through it today, like this needs a lot more attention and a lot deeper of a dive, because this is setting the stage for what is coming down next. We know that we're supposed to have an election in a year's time. If this bill gets passed,
it's very serious. It's very serious.
Say goodbye to our election process as we know it, or elections period.
Right.
So,
yeah, because we know the law won't be applied equally.
exactly.
So there we are. Have a great weekend, everybody. We are not doing any public appearances until the March 9th. So we'll talk about that
we have
later.
some meetings on Saturday and we have
Yeah.
another meeting on Sunday. So March 9th is, you're right, is
Yeah.
the next sort of public appearance.
That's right. Okay, everybody. Good night. Thanks for watching. Love you all.
Have a great
Thank you
weekend.
for the support. Good night.